Alright, this is going to be a very brief introduction to WattStopper's digital lighting management partition devices. I'm going to run through some slides and I'm going to show you an example of LMCS of how to properly set up a room that contains partitioning devices. The LMIO-102 is the first of the WattStopper's partitioning devices. Built into each DLM IRB is the ability to change between 16 different profiles. When I talk about profiles, I'm talking about simply the bindings of devices to loads. For example, switches to loads, aux sensors to loads. We have the ability to change those to these different profiles and allow a room to be partitioned so that a single IRB can act one way when the room is wide open and act another way when a partition is closed and we have two different spaces. We want to avoid switches in one of the spaces to operate loads in a room that they can't see. So that's the whole drive behind the partitioning devices. The LMPS-108 is not compatible with the LMIO-102 or any of the WattStopper partitioning devices. So right away, if you see that you've got LMPS-108 on the IRB, it is not going to work. So the LMIO-102 has the ability to take in 4 different inputs to trigger a total combination of 16 different scenes. So as these inputs are triggered by some sort of mechanical switch in the space by the partition, it'll rearrange the bindings and trigger different profiles. So here's an example of the wiring of the LMIO-102. We're expecting a dry contact between 24 volts DC and any combination of these partitions. So dry contact between 24 volts DC and wall 1, wall 2, wall 3, or wall 4, or any combination thereof. And we'll look at a chart here in a minute about exactly what partition is triggered for the different devices. And here you go right here. So here I have my various walls, wall 1, wall 2, wall 3, and wall 4. Each combination is going to trigger a different profile, up to 16 profiles, right? So every iteration, every combination of wall inputs is going to trigger a different profile. This diagram right here is found in the installation instructions. It's very handy when you're triggering walls to try and determine which profile you're in without LMCS. Here's another example. So ultimately, this is a room that would have 4 partitions, and you would be able to divide it up 16 different ways. In instances like profile 2, where we only have wall 1 closed, physically that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you can see as you start getting these different combinations, you're going to be able to enclose different spaces. Now obviously this is just a cube with 4 walls, and we'll have the ability to divide the space up differently, but this is just to help us understand what's going on with these partitions. Again, it just changes the load bindings. As you go from profile 1 to profile 2, you have different scenes. So as we go through and we set things up, we're going to make sure that we need to reconfigure the second set of scenes, or actually scenes for each profile. This is our second interface device, or partition device, and this is the LMPS-104 partition switch. So again, this is going to be in lieu of the LMIO-102, where they can work in combination together. this looks like just like an LMPS-104. However, on this picture here, you'll notice that the LEDs are green. And so each one of these buttons represents a wall, and it will allow the user to configure which profile we're in by pushing these combinations, or by pushing the switches. Again, it's not compatible with LMPS-108. So this is right out of the instruction manual. Again, the difference between the LMPS-104 and the LMSW-104, well, other than the function, if you're just physically looking at them, you don't know what's behind the switch plate because you can't see the part number. The LEDs on the LMPS-104 are green, and they're going to be on when the wall is active. Now, one thing that we want to make sure that we understand with this switch is that each one of these buttons need to be enabled in order for us to activate the rooms. So if we have a room with 2 partitions, we need to, when we first set this up, push and hold wall 1 down for 10 seconds until the green LED comes on. You then want to push and hold the second button down for 10 seconds. That is going to enable these 2 buttons to allow the wall to be activated. Subsequent pushes, it's going to be about a 3-second push to activate the wall. It's to be able to turn these on and turn these off. If we've got multiple LMPS-104s, we're going to have to go through on each switch and enable the walls so that they can later be activated. So again, just in summary, the first time you take the button out of a box, we need to determine which walls are going to be active and which ones to enable. We need to hold each button down for 10 seconds on every switch. So if we've got 2 switches, we've got to do that for each of the switches. Again, after that, it only takes 3 seconds to activate the wall. This is what we've seen earlier. The LMPS-104 is exactly the same thing. Depending on how your walls are configured or how your buttons are configured, you'll get different profiles. So here's an example that we're going to create in LMCS. Here I have 2 LMRC212s. I have my partition switches. This room actually has 2 partition switches so that you can activate them from either room. They are going to mirror each other, so if we activate a wall in this space, this one will mirror it. And we've got some scene switches, some aux sensors, and some dimmers. So here's just a quick layout. So this room controller contains loads 1 and 2. This one contains loads 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When the space is wide open like this dimmer is going to control the loads in this half of the room, loads 1 and loads 3. This one will control them in the rear of the room, 2 and 4. Again, this one will do 1 and 3, this one will do 2 and 4. The aux sensors are going to be bound to all loads, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The scenes get a little bit tricky, so we want to assign each one of these individual buttons a unique scene. So by default, this one right here, by default the switch will be assigned scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. This switch over here by default is going to be scene 1, scene 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're going to change it to scene 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that'll kind of make more sense once I close the partition. So this is how the room functions wide open. When I first set this up, I'm going to push and hold this top button down for 10 seconds to activate the wall. Same thing, to enable the wall. This one is, I'm also going to hold down for 10 seconds to enable the wall. And then once I close the partition, you can see here I got my green LED. This room is now going to behave differently. The switches and scenes on this side of the room are not going to be able to control the switches and scenes on this half of the room. So this dimmer now just does 1, basically the top half. This button now just does the bottom half, again the top bottom. This aux sensor now, since we've closed the partition, only controls loads 3 and 4. This one does 1 and 2. And now we've got 16 different scenes, and we're going to use scenes 1 through 4 on this one, and scene 5 through 6 on, 5 through 8 on this one. And that's simply because we don't want scenes on this space to be driving loads on this half of the room. So again, it's a single IRB, so we still only have 16 scenes, but the partition allows us to toggle the loads, or toggle the bindings of each of these scenes. So I'm going to set this up in LMCS now. So when I first get started in a room, I'm going to want to make sure to PNG it, and you can just do that with your CT. I'm going to go ahead and start up LMCS. I've PNG'd my room. Bring it over here. I'm connected locally with my LMCI. I'm going to do a discovery. You'll notice that it's going to take a little while longer because it now has to discover 16 partitions for each of the 12 devices. So it's going to take a little while longer. Alright, so my room has successfully discovered 12 devices. You'll notice that my partition devices have been found. Profile support enabled. So here's a look at my IRB. You'll notice I have 2 partition switches. I have LMRC222s in this demo, a PX aux sensor, a DC100 aux sensor, 1, 2, 3, 4 LMDM switches, and 2 LMSW105 switches. Now you'll notice that the switches, I retained some descriptions. So let me show you something. Let me go back to here. Alright, so this is my room wide open. I've decided that I'm going to call this half of the room side A, and this one side B. And so we're going to want to take a few minutes when we first get started with our LMCS program to be able to document the various points in there so that we know where our various switches are and can program them quite a bit quicker. So back to LMCS. So what you can do, the LMPS-104 is an LMCS. There's not a whole lot you can do. You still have to physically push and enable the top button. In this case, you only have one partition, so we only want to enable one button. Push and hold it for 10 seconds. That will enable it. And then subsequent pushes to activate the wall or deactivate the wall is only a 3-second push. So I don't need to worry about labeling these ones. Load load 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are on side thing. Right? So those 1 and 2 are on side A. So I'm going to relabel some of these. I'm just going to put A1 and A2. I'm going to say C A. And I'm going to load 3. 3 is going to be, I'm just going to call it B3. And B4. The LMPS-100, I'm going to say, is on side A. LMPS is going to be side B. I've already gone through and labeled these switches. So there were 2 switches on each half of the room. So this is going to be controlling loads 1 on side A and load 3 on side B when it's appropriate. And then this is going to be basically the bottom half. So if we go back to my PowerPoint, so this is going to be load A, I'm sorry, side A, it's going to, when it's wide open, I'm going to go back. When it's wide open, this is going to control load 1 and 3. This will be B1 and 3. This will be A24, and this will be B24. So you're going to want to come up with a naming convention so that you can quickly identify these devices, and that's what I've done. So I've got two on side A. This one controls top, that one controls bottom, B, top, bottom. And then lastly, LMPS-105s. One tool that you can use to identify your devices is ping. So if you're sitting in the room connected, you can click on the ping, and it's going to flash the LEDs on the switch. So this one was side B, and this one was side A. And then I can also confirm A just by hitting the ping. And the LEDs on the button will flash. So back to my PowerPoint slide. That's this one right here. So the switch on side A is I'm going to need to change it to scene 5, 6, 7, 8. This one I can leave at defaults. And then again, so right now, when you first open up LMCS, it knows which room is active. So if I come up to the top level of the room, you're going to see the set profile room right now. So by default, with the LMPS is not activated, it's going to be in profile 1. If we start activating walls, LMCS will pick up on that and will automatically change the profile number. However, my buttons are currently deactivated, so I'm left in profile 1. You can manually switch it by clicking on set profile, and then set profile, so you can scroll through, you can see you've got the 16 scenes. I'm going to leave it in 1 now because we're going to set our space up just like that. Okay, so real quick, again, profile 1, and this is going to help us right here. We've got a little window to tell us what profile we're in. So again, wide open, aux sensors are going to control all, aux sensors are going to control all. LMDM, so this is on side A, but if you remember, I wanted to control the top half of the room, so that's going to be 1 and 3, this will be A2 and 4, this is going to be B2 and 4, and this is going to be side B1 and 3. LMSWs, if we remember, on side A, by default we want the rocker to control everything, scene 1, 2, 3, 4. I want just the default scene. So scene 1 is all loads 100%, all loads 75%, scene 3 is 50%, scene 4 is 25%. In this switch, however, I don't want my scenes to change between profiles, so I need to change this to scene 5, scene 6, scene 7, and scene 8. Now if you remember, I want this button 1 to be all loads 100, all loads 75, 50, 25%. So I need to go into the scene editor and edit these scenes. So I'm in scene 8, and so I said all loads are going to be 25%. So I'm just going to type it in. I'm going to go to scene 7. This was 50. Six is and then scene 5 is all loads 100, and then if I go to scene 4, we'll restart our defaults again. So I'm not going to send it quite yet. I want to do a little bit more work. So I've got this room set up just like this. Okay, so now I'm going to close the partition. Usually it takes between 4 and 5 seconds for the profile to actually activate in the room. I want these bindings to happen. And when I talk about scene 5 now, it's going to be all loads 100, 75, 50, 25. but I only want to control loads 1 and 2. So we're going to have to change those bindings. And then same thing over here. This is still 100, 75, 50, 25%, but I only want them to affect loads 3 and 4. Aux sensors only need to go to 3 and 4. These dimmers I only want to control loads on the B side of the room. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my room. So I'm just going to manually activate it from here. I'm going to click Set Profile. Doesn't look like it did much, but as we start examining some of our bindings, you'll notice that the PNG state for profile 2 right here is no loads are bound to the aux sensor. So this is on side A, so I'm going to bind this load to side A. This one is going to be side B. The time delays remain throughout all the profiles. The time delays and sensitivity do not change between profiles. So this LMDM switch, if I remember, is on side A, and I want it to control load 1. This one is on side A, and I want it to control load 2. This one is on side B, and I want it to control load 4. This one is on side B, and I want it to control load 3. Down to my C switches. This rocker now is on the B side, and I only want it to control loads on B. I'm going to go ahead and set that up for this other button too. This is on side A, so that's going to be, that rocker is only going to be bound to load A. Now if I look at my scenes, I've got scenes 1 through 4 again. So if I remember, I kind of did a little bit backwards, but the point's kind of the same, right? So on side A, if you look here, on side A I had scenes 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to go ahead and assign those. So on A, I'm going to go to 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I need to edit my scenes. I'm going to come back up here to this button, scene 1. I'm just going to go. So if we remember, this button is on side B. And side B only needs to control those loads right there. That's scene 1, all loads are 100%. I'll go down to scene 2. Again, this is, I only want to control loads on side B. That's 75%. That's cool. 3, and only B, 50%. 4, 25%, loads B. Alright, now if I go to scene 5, that is on side A. Here, so I only want to control loads 1 and 2 with these scenes 5, 6, 7, 8. So 5 is all loads 100%. 6 is 5. 7 is going to be 50. 8. Oops, 8 is going to be 25. Alright, so I've found my aux sensors, and again in profile 2, I've found my switches, I've created my scenes, so that that top button right there is always scene 5, that one's always scene 6, always scene 7, always scene 8. That's the best practice to change. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and go back up to my discovered room. I'm going to go back to profile 1. I'm going to set profile 1. You'll notice that my bindings have changed. That's what we would expect. Scene profile 1, wide open. I'm going to go ahead and send all devices. This is going to send all 16 partitions for all 12 devices. So it's going to take a little bit. So at this point, you're going to want to, if you have more profiles, profile 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you need to edit the bindings and the scenes in each profile so that you're not cross-talking between rooms. So that is a brief summary of profiling. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. There's nothing else I want to talk about. So WattStopper DLM profiling.